Well, you're all in the wide shot now. Tell me if you can hear me okay. I'm running late. I'm sorry about that. But let me know if you can hear me okay. Whoops, that's the wrong one. That's not what I'm looking for. That's the one I'm looking for right there. All right, well, loud and clear, good. Lot to talk about today, that's for sure. I gotta find my phone here. I'll be right back. Anyway, hopefully you'll be able to listen to this. I want you to hear some of this here as Dr. Ron Paul talks about this. Now, some of you may know that I voted for Ron Paul in times past, and because I believe that he's right about a lot of things. And he's definitely right about what he's talking about here. Plain and simple. So and I'll kind of give you my synopsis in a second here, okay? Because I'm really not trying to stoke anybody's fear here. I want to be practical with this. You see my title up there. I'm not saying that that's going to absolutely happen 100%. No. We're going to take a snapshot of it. And we're going to talk about, I want to listen in with you to Dr. Ron Paul. So what he talks about here, because I want you to look at what he calls it, the mother of all man-made crises. So, big whale's not on time. I'm just late. That's how that works. But anyway, let's do this here. I'm going to go search for my phone here to make sure I have it. Let's listen to this.
Master, the tempest is raging, the billows are tossing high. The sky is overshadowed with blackness, no shelter or help is nigh. Carest thou not that we perish? How canst thou lie asleep, when each moment so madly is threatening the grave and the angry deep? The winds and the waves shall obey thy will. Peace, be still, be still, be still. Whether the wrath of the storm tossed sea, or demons or men, or whatever it be, no waters can swallow the ship where lies the master of ocean and earth and skies. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace, be still, peace, be still. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace, peace, be still. Master, with anguish of spirit, I bow in my grief today. The depths of my sad heart are troubled. Awaken and save, I pray. Torrents of sin and of anguish sweep o'er my sinking soul. And I perish, dear Master. Oh, hasten and take control. The winds and the waves shall obey thy will. Peace, be still, be still, be still. Whether the wrath of the storm tossed sea, or demons or men, or whatever it be, no waters can swallow the ship where lies the master of ocean and earth and skies. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace, be still, peace, be still. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace, peace, be still. Master, the terror is over, the elements sweetly rest. Their sun in the calm lake is mirrored, in heavens within my breast. Linger, O blessed Redeemer, leave me alone no more. And with joy I shall make the blessed harbor, and rest on the blissful shore. The winds and the waves shall obey thy will. Peace, be still, be still, be still. Whether the wrath of the storm-tossed sea, or demons or men, or whatever it be, no waters can swallow the ship where lies the master of ocean and earth and skies. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace be still, peace be still. They all shall sweetly obey thy will. Peace, peace be still.
Amen. All right. Well, listen, we are live here. Hope you're all doing well here today. Let's see. We got Rachel on here. We've got Cindy Moretti on here. Andrea, Pilgrim Lady. Teresa, Daryl's wife. Mary Teresia. I don't know if that's right. Mary Weeby. I think you're from Canada. I think I remember you. I haven't seen you for a while. You've been on the last broadcast, but anyway, hope you're doing well, Mary and Mary, all the Marys. I hope you're all doing merry. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Aaron with the blue wrench, Stephen, Paul, Andrea Bales, Carl Winters. I think I have a new nickname for Carl that's going to stick. I have a new name for Carl. All right? Joe McDonnell, Rolando, Jacob. Hey, what was the name of that song? Master, the Tempest is Raging, that one? Rob Lee, hey Cooley, sorry about the dog cremation thing. I'm not a troll. Please give me another chance. What dog cremation thing? What are you talking about? Man, I get the weirdest people. Okay, Rob. I guess behave yourself, whatever that means. Anyway, all right. Well, listen, Carl is the Croatian sensation. That's who Carl is. The Croatian sensation. Listen to Ron Paul for a second.
To give up powers for the future. That's sort of like
wrong one. There we go.
And all the problems we have. Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, how are you doing today? Are you surviving the epidemics and all the problems we have?
I am surviving the epidemic. I'm even surviving our empty stores and markets here in Lake Jackson.
Oh,
see, he's going to make some good points, and I'm starting with this for a reason, because I wanted to know what Ron Paul thought, and the reason why is because the guy was in government for a long time. He understands government. He understands libertarianism. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm just saying that he understands a lot of things. So I wanted to get his perspective on this issue first and see kind of what he was thinking about this. And I wasn't far off, to be honest with you, of thinking the same thing that he was pretty much. Now, he's more technical and he's got way more knowledge than I do. So, but in this realm, I'm not talking about the Word of God. I'm talking about just, in politics in general.
Boy. Well, fortunately, we know all about that, and we can bounce back because we've had hurricanes here a few times.
Exactly.
But I think the stores are going to get filled up sooner than they are with hurricanes. The hurricanes, are bad for getting things in and out. But I don't know. Our governor didn't learn much from the hurricanes because when he made his emergency announcement, he said, "Don't let me catch you gouging people." And of course, that's part of this. Get rid of the pricing structure. Whole thing in economics, supply and demand. What is the price?
See, you're going to hear him talk about this, and here's one of the problems. Okay, I'm not going to address any questions right now about multiple things that have nothing to do with what I'm talking about until a set time. So if you ask me a bunch of questions about all these other things, I'm not going to answer it. I'm not going to go into all that. I want to deal with this topic today, and I want to stay focused on it today. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to ignore your questions if you ask about other things right now, because I want to deal with what we're talking about right now. But he's going to talk about price gouging. And I heard somebody, we had a discussion about this the other day. But here's the problem. When you don't have price increases on things when supply and demand go up, what happens is you have people that buy out all the stuff low, right? And then they resell it for higher amounts to people online and everywhere else. But if those stores could raise those prices up, if the stores could raise the prices up and be like, no, you're not going to do that, we're going to raise the prices on stuff, it would, in a free market, it would control the market a little better. I think that's what he's probably saying, but let's listen in.
Price and what you should make or do, and then they screw up the whole world with fixing the interest rate price, and now you're not allowed to gouge, which is an ugly word. It sounds so selfish, and it is to a degree. People say, well, if I take a little more risk, I can make a little more money, and that's what it is. It's a cost of risk, and people will cause shortages. I remember when they put wage and price controls on in 1971. Boy, shortages immediately occurred, and things are bad enough. But if you have this radical approach against, charging more because people work harder, they might stay up all night trying to get you material here and helping you out. And when there's a hurricane, they go through dangerous conditions. But anyway, they haven't learned that lesson, and they consider them representative of the freest market system in the entire world.
Yeah. And what about regulating scarcity? I went to the store and you see people piled up with toilet paper that they don't need, and then the guy who actually needs it, he can't even get it at any price. So it's a great way to regulate scarcity.
And of course, this regulation, making sure nobody, that you can't charge more. Immediately, what I noticed in the 70s, immediately shortages.
That's what happened.
See what I mean? That's what they're causing, the shortages. If companies were able to say, okay, now you're not going to be able to do that, we're going to raise the price because we control the inventory and we can do that somewhat. What happens is, guess what? It lowers the binge buying of craziness that's going on. See what I mean? Because the free market just works it out to where it's like, okay, well, we control the supply and demand. We're just going to charge more. You see what I mean? But what they're doing is they're causing guys to buy 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer. So they go off and they sell it, and then they price gouge, they do everything. But when you have the whole market raising the price up for supply and demand, then guess what? Changes things. Levels it out. Does it with fuel and everything else. But when the government gets their hands in things and they try to manipulate the market and control it, it gets worse.
And it makes it worse. So if you allow prices to go up, people will take more risk. Oh yeah, I can make an extra buck if I drive this truck all night.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll help myself and I'll help the people who need some help. But no, the politicians get involved.
See, what he's talking about is people taking truckloads of stuff to certain parts of the country that need it, that are wanting it, and selling it for higher prices and making money because they're taking a risk. And people call that, oh, that's terrible, that's price gouging. Well, really, it's actually not. I mean, it's if everybody could do it and they didn't stop everybody from doing it, that's the guy that has the 17,000 bottles. Well, if he wants to get in a truck and go all over the country, let him. But if you raise the prices, if you allowed everybody to raise the prices, everybody, yeah, sure, that guy can buy it, but the Target's going to say, well, I'm raising my price on it. Why? Because he's making more on it, so I'm going to raise it. See, so what would happen? People would take a risk, the market would even out. It's not saying that it's against everybody. I don't think he's really saying it's wrong for that guy to buy 17,000. He's saying if you're going to sell it to people and you're going to do all that, everybody's got to be able to do that. That's what I believe he's saying. I could be wrong, but that's what it sounds like to me. Because, see, when you have guys driving into hurricane districts with truckloads of stuff, guess what happens? People get the stuff that they need. That's what happens. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Keep a good shot on this thread here, Mike, as I'm going through this. And if there's a bunch of nonsense, just get it out. I'm not going to get consumed with, like, by the way, the whole Crusader for Christ lady that by the way, she's a woman street preacher. She did a video about me. She doesn't know how to spell rebuke. She spelled it R-U-B-U-K, and she put it on my head. And she showed how I'm this raging maniac that, picked on her. But she's a street preaching woman that thinks that she has authority to call out pastors. Anyway, but so go figure. But I believe that's what he's saying. I don't think he's saying the guy with the 17,000 bottles can't do it. I think he's saying if everybody wants to do it, go ahead, but it's going to raise prices. People are going to raise their prices so you can't buy as many. Industry is. Some people are going to take truckloads of stuff and go drive out to places and set up shop and sell. Fine, that's the way life works. That's the way life works.
But that leads to the question, not only how we deal with this, but how it was created, all our problems created. And we have a bunch of problems going on, whether it's the coronavirus, whether it's the financial calamity we have, or one thing that's sort of smoldering right now is the militarism of our government.
Yeah.
Now, they're stirring up trouble in Iraq. I thought we won that war a long time ago, but that's stirring up. And the one that really annoys me, not that I know a whole lot of people in Iran, but I despise our foreign policy to what they do to the Iranians, because what they hurt mostly the innocent children.
Yeah.
With sanctions. So they've suffered, much more than the average country, because they've already.
Now, he's going to get into it pretty soon here, and I agree with him, by the way, about our foreign policy. It's ridiculous. But anyway, he's going to get into talking about the issue at hand, and then I'm going to switch over after I'm done with Ron Paul, and then I'm going to switch over. We're going to talk about martial law a little bit. We're going to show how it was enacted in the past. We're going to talk about that a little bit, and talk about, in the end, Romans 13. What is the church to do about all these things? What are God's people to do about all these things?
It might be one of the biggest ever, but I think you should be able to lay the problems we're facing today at the feet of most significantly government agents and misinformation and the whole idea that government knows best. They got us into this trouble, and then people get frightened and scared and say, take care of me, do whatever you want, I'll give up my liberties, like after 9/11.
Yep.
Ron Paul, you're wrong. You have to give up some freedoms under these conditions.
See, and that's what it is. If you go to my Facebook page all over, I'm talking about this stuff, and I've got friends that various ways disagree, to the level of understanding about, this issue, as far as that goes. I love them all. I'm not mad at anybody. Okay. All that stuff. I'm not mad at anybody. But it's just, we have different variations of opinion on this issue. Let me say here that, do I believe they're going to enact martial law? Probably not. Probably not. I think it's like a test run. Wow. So she tries to spam me again. Unbelievable. Anyway, here's the thing. There's no such thing as a female preacher. That's the thing. I know I said I didn't want to get off on anything else, but I will say this. There's no such thing as a female preacher. There isn't one. There is no female preacher that stands up. Never is a woman called to stand up, lift up her voice like a trumpet. They're a bunch of raging Jezebels that do it. They don't have any authority. And if you don't like that, then you can stop listening to me, because it won't bother me a bit, because I will stand for God's holy word when it comes to the order of the sexes. I will stand for it in this feminist, wicked world that we live in. And I don't care who it makes mad. It don't matter if they shout or pout. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm going to keep preaching it. Anyway, let's move on.
So this crisis is there now. People are dying. People are getting sick. And yet when you look at these statistics, they're sort of biased toward stirring up, hysteria. And so far, they're doing a good job. I often wonder, we know about cultural Marxism. Why do they do these such dumb things and everybody gets angry? Don't you know there's too outrageous? But then it dawned on me. Somebody said, well, it's done on purpose. They want you to be angry. They want you to be upset. And I think, some of this stuff will upset people, but no, they want the chaos more than anything else. And that's not to say that everybody involved, because there's a lot of ignorance out there, too.
See, that's one thing you have to understand. There's some people that are involved with this whole thing. There's some people that are involved with this whole thing that they don't know what's really going on. They're very ignorant. They're very ignorant is what they are. And I have no idea what that's about, but anyway. All right, bye. I always see that the charismatic chicks always go nuts on me, whether they're male or female. You'll get that one in a little while. But they can't take when some man stands up and preaches against their stinking nonsense. So, anyway, I don't know what the whole you stole thing was about, but whatever that was about, I have no idea. Anyway, so what this is talking about here is a market crash. That's what Dr. Paul is talking about here. He's saying that they're playing games with all this stuff. That's what's going on. And they're stoking up. Some people are ignorant. Other people know exactly what they're doing.
How the economy gets built into the biggest bubble ever, and then be surprised, oh, look, the stock market crashed. Well, it must be the coronavirus. That's a lot of confusion, stacked in that.
And what's shocking is this chain reaction of panic and fear, and how the government ratchets in to take over. And it started on Thursday when people.
So think about it. You create the chaos, right? You create the chaos. You build it all up and get it moving and get it going, and then what happens? And then you could come in and fix it. What did we say? The problem, reaction, solution. Anybody remember that? Problem, reaction, solution.
People started panicking. That's when my son's university decided to close for the rest of the semester. I hope they get a refund. But then it started yesterday. You started hearing governors shutting down their states. And I just wrote a couple. I bet even while we talk, there's more. New Jersey, statewide 8 p.m. curfew. Casinos and restaurants closed. Michigan orders gyms, cafes, and theaters to close. Bars and restaurants, you can only take carry-out. Ohio shuts down the whole country, the whole state. Bars, restaurants have to shut down. Washington shuts down.
So think about it. So they send out a proclamation that all these things are being shut down. A proclamation. Now, listen to me. Let me say something here, okay? Before people take me the wrong way. Listen. People need to use common sense. There's certain places that you probably shouldn't go as older folks when this is heated up, maybe out of caution. I'm not telling you the government should force it. I'm not saying the government should force it. But I'm saying you should be wise enough in some situations not to. But to shut down everybody's business and rob them and destroy their businesses, how is that going to help anybody?
Bars and restaurants, Las Vegas shuts down hotel. California, they're telling old folks you can't go out of your house. Or not even old folks, 70 and above, you got to stay at home. This is tyranny.
Right. If you're 70 above, you got to stay at home. They're putting curfews on old people. Listen, if that person wants to go in that area and they take the chance of dying, you can't stop people from living their lives. This is what I have a problem with. Mandatory, government-forced quarantines.
And all this for less than 100 deaths in the United States. Where do they get the authority to tell some restaurant owner, you got to shut down, you can't do your business?
Well, then, some of the conditions that they create in addition to correcting the problems that are already made, it gets worse. Take this social distancing.
Yeah.
Stay away from me. We can't touch you and all this. And I think we might have a picture of that. Do we have?
Yeah, from the airport. Yeah, they said
the
you got to
airport.
keep a social distance.
Yes. So they said everybody go home and hibernate and stay there. Don't touch it. And then now look. Look at what they've created. It wouldn't have happened if they just say, well, maybe it's time.
They caused a mass hysteria with people by ordering them all home, and all these people are running around like crazy. So it's stoking it. Right? It's stoking it. That's what it's doing. Hang on a second. There we go. It's, they're stoking the flames of all this stuff. They're making it worse. That's what they're doing.
You can think about going home and take your time. But no, rush it, because by Sunday night, there are no flights allowed out of Europe.
You're stuck.
Good night. And then it is well known. It's a medical fact that sunshine is pretty good for us, and it does provide some immunity. And so So what do? I guess they say that one of the biggest and nicest beaches in the country, Miami Beach, gets closed down after all these people were migrating there. So they do dumb things and make things worse.
Right, like how dumb is it to not be out in the sunlight, which we know the sun kills a lot of things and burns things up. Nope, you got to be hibernated in your house and sit there so you can all breed it. It's nonsense. How is that even smart?
And I think that when this dust settles, somebody has to do an examination of this, of how people get carried away. But it is just panic. But I think people panic easily. They get scared. But I think some individuals do it on purpose. I think some of the medical explanations and the medical individual that gives us all this information, hey, Gauci, I don't think he's been a help at all. I think he's created a lot of the problems we have.
Yeah, well, as you point out today in your column, he's made a lot of flat-out false statements. It's 10 times more deadly than the flu.
Now listen to this part. He's made this Dr. Fauci, he's made a lot of false statements, is what Ron Paul is saying. Now listen to what he says here, how he talks about this.
No numbers. Even the CDC says it's actually less than 0.1%, so less deadly than the flu. So it's completely. But I think propaganda plays a huge role in this, and it's designed to scare people. And when people are scared, what do? They don't dare question it. And we have another graphic, and this is thanks to Bob Wenzel for pointing this out. This is the graphic that got everyone into a panic and said, we've got to shut everything down. And the first curve is if we do nothing. And the dotted line is the capacity of the healthcare system. So if we do nothing, it's going to go out of control completely and overwhelm everything. But if we do control measures, which is all the things we've talked about, shut things down, force elderly folks to stay at home, et cetera, then, it won't overwhelm it so bad. This was on every TV show where they talked about what to do. There's only one problem, as Bob pointed out.
Okay, now hang on. So remember, this graphic is showed everywhere. This graphic is being showed everywhere. And it's false, is what he's saying.
And others, there's one thing missing. There's no numbers on this. This isn't a scientific graph. This is simply a pictorial representation of someone's aspirations and someone's view, someone's opinion.
So do you see what he's saying? Wait a minute. No one's even counted this. No one has numbers for this. Who put numbers in here? Where are the numbers at? You just showed a picture. This is going to happen if you don't do this. Well, what proof do you have of that? None.
Graphic, but it has no science at all behind it. So its purpose was propaganda.
Well, even if it were true, it's going the wrong way because, whether it's in economics, you want to cleanse the system up and down, get it out of the way and liquidate the bad mistakes and the debt. Now, if everybody's destined to become immune by having more people get it, you don't want to string it out. That's just stringing it out like they string out recessions.
See what he's saying? See what he's saying? If you string it out, look, when something gets out into the open air and it goes everywhere, people start to become immune to it. It doesn't control them that much, right? Their bodies adapt to it. But if you hibernate it all up like in Wuhan over there, and they're all just kind of hibernated together, just getting everybody sick and killing everybody, that's what happens.
Get involved and intercede, and then the pain and suffering. But your point is that this doesn't even have any accuracy to it, and they shouldn't be, overwhelmed by it. It's, the influenza. It's still. I've said this so many times. it's a serious illness, much more serious so far, at least, for coronaviruses. And we're going to have 50,000 cases this year.
Deaths,
Deaths, 50,000 and hundreds of thousands total, and that's a serious.
Do you see that? He's saying 50,000 people are going to die from influenza this year. But they're stoking this, and only 100 people have, not even 100 people have died.
Problem, but nobody mentions it, and there's a lot of TB still around. A lot of people die even in this country, but it's not mentioned, and it's much worse, than the deaths coming from a coronavirus. But the danger of us making this point, of course, is you guys don't care.
Yeah.
Well, what we care about is taking a problem that was created by man and having the same people who created it to solve the problem, and then they make it much worse. Because some of this stuff resolves itself. Like right now, just ignoring this whole thing for a bit would be helpful. Common sense. There's nothing wrong with using that a little bit, but
he's saying you should just leave it alone and let it run its course. And it wouldn't be as bad as what they're making it. When Trump thinks that he could just throw money at it. If he just throws money at it, then it'll make it better. Right?
Influenza is very serious, but headlines, the scare tactic. New York cold virus. What if we had to say, well, every winter, what we want now is reduction in colds. So we have to, do a test on everybody every winter. So right now, the people haven't been tested. We don't know who's immune or who had it and who's spreading the colds.
See, he said the exact. I want you guys from church yesterday, you that are members of OPBC. Remember I said this yesterday? I didn't watch this video yesterday either. It just came on today. But remember what I said to you yesterday. I said to you yesterday, we don't know who already has it. We don't know how far it's already been spread everywhere anyway. All that stuff. People have already probably had it. Many people are probably immune to it already, but we don't know. But they're pushing and stoking this. Now, I'm just dealing with this aspect. Then we'll get into martial law, national emergencies, all that other stuff. But I want you to understand this from somebody reasonable that's standing outside of that doesn't get a paycheck from the government and says, okay, all right. I think we're going a little bit too loony here on this.
This is a cold virus, but it's a more dangerous cold virus, and people should be more cautious. But it's usually a combination, with other things going on. But even if not, I think the hysterical reaction.
So what he's saying is that yes, it's not a cakewalk for people. But what he's saying is that most of the time those people that get it, that die from it, already have something else. They're already fighting something else. So what he's saying is a lot of people are pushing this narrative so hard and so far. For what reason?
And the overreaction is very dangerous to us now. And of course, I think you started off with saying, well, it's dangerous because this is an opportunity for government authoritarians to take away more of our liberties. What was the answer?
There you go. See what he said? That's what I'm concerned about. I'm not saying that they're going to do it anyway, or that's their goal or whatever. But let's just say Trump likes America. Let's just say he likes America, which I think he probably does in a lot of ways. All right, let's say that. Now, let's say that you give people power to do the things that they're doing right now. When they get farther along, they're going to do worse. When the next guy comes along, he'll do worse. Right? Now, somebody said something about polio vaccinations totally eradicated disease. No, that's not true. Sanitation eliminated most diseases in America. Plumbing eliminated most of the diseases. Cleanliness eliminated most of the diseases in America, not vaccinations.
Answer after 9/11. Well, we have to regulate the people. We have to, give them the Patriot Act and take away their liberties. But in this case, in many ways, they're doing the same thing, controlling these health matters. It's not good information, and there are some good articles that make more sense than what we're hearing.
Well, in fact, Robert Wenzel, we'll cite him again because he's been a sea of an island of tranquility in this crazy time. But he put out something. He put something on his. It was a tweet. It was an interview of a CBS reporter.
Okay, now this is what I want you to see. All right, I want you to see this right here and pay attention to what he's saying. Pay attention very closely what this reporter says, but his conclusion is screwed up. But what he says is the truth about what happened. Pay attention, you'll catch it. He'll explain it to you too.
In Rome, I think it was. He was covering coronavirus in Rome, and he contracted the virus. Okay, and here he's being interviewed on his channel and his network. He said, quote, "For the most part, I feel okay. I've had a kind of chest pressure, almost like you feel when you do a big workout. Honestly, I feel like I've had colds and flu worse than this," end quote. But then he finishes by saying, "But all of these measures are necessary. We got to shut these things down. We got to keep up the quarantines. We got to stop the spread of this." When he himself is saying, this is like not even as bad as a cold or the flu.
Yeah, they have.
Okay, so think about it. Here's what he did, right? He tells you, the reporter says, "Well, yeah, I have it, and I'm okay. I mean, it just felt like chest pressure, didn't feel good, kind of made me sick, all that stuff, right? But we should shut everything down and we should stop everything." Well, based on what?
To go searching for the problem, right?
Yeah.
But there are some things stirring in the Middle East which will be ignored until they need a real war going on there. There's been more bombing, more killing in Iraq, and we're always looking for a fight with Iran. So things have not settled down there. In a way, they've perked up a little bit. They're more dangerous, but nobody's going to worry about that. And if we compare deaths from influenza and coronaviruses, that's one thing, and people will dismiss that. But they wouldn't dare try to compare death and destruction from wars that have been unnecessary, illegal, foolish, and people say unanimously almost agree that the Iraq War was a stupid war.
Yeah.
It was they lied us into it.
Yeah.
But
Amen. I agree. Still looking for them weapons of mass destruction, ain't we?
just march on and march on. What are we going to do? Wait 2 years and say, there's hope that some of our suspicions are right, that when the summer heat comes, most viruses go away. And let's hope they would say, there was a bunch of lies they told us, but not now. They're not going to do this. We're the ones that will get into trouble for suggesting, a little more objectivity.
Well, what they'll say if that...
See, he's going to go in and tell you what exactly they're going to say here. And he's going to tell you, and I agree with him, they're going to paint this. See, Trump's throwing all this money at this, voting everything, doing all this. Notice how remember how impeachment filled the airwaves. That's all they talked about for a month and a half was impeachment. Impeachment, 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 impeachment. That's all they talked about. Now it goes on. Now it moves on to the coronavirus. Next news phase. Well, what's going on behind the scenes? Sleight of hand.
That happens, and you're right, and it's nothing like they're talking about is, oh, well, they'll take all the credit. Oh, well, we were right to shut everything down and seize everyone's business and keep the senior citizens at home. We were right. This just shows that we're right. Instead of, you know what, we overreacted. We probably destroyed a few thousand mom and pop restaurants and bars and businesses in the process. But, you know, as you say,
think about that. So they're gonna spin this, right? In 2 months. Who thinks in like 2 months when the sun shines, it gets 80 degrees out, all the viruses die, because nobody talks about getting the flu in the middle of summer. All the viruses die, and they say, and Trump stands up there, like Superman. Like he killed the virus because of all the stuff that they did and all the money they spent and all the billions and billions and trillions of dollars of debt they got us in.
These things do peter out, and in fact, we saw something on Zero Hedge today where in Lombardy, which is a region of Italy, today is the first day they're reporting the smallest jump in new cases in a week. So it jumped like this, and then it's going like this. And that's exactly what happened in China. So It's running its course in these places, no thanks to all the...
I wonder if I can find that in China. I can show you something. Hang on, let me see if I can find it, okay? I'll see if I can find it. Let's see. Oh, wait, I think I know where it is, maybe. Hang on a second. Oh, I don't think it's this one, is it? Nope, that's not it. Hang on a second. And let me be fair also, well, we'll get, hang on. I will be better than Fox News, fair and balanced, but hold on. Okay? Where was I? Oh, here I was. Okay. Here it is. This is it. Okay, this is it. Now, this, Dr. Sam Gipp, and I don't agree with Dr. Gipp on everything, and me and him aren't buds or anything like that. But I want to show you this, that Chinese medical workers who've been fighting the coronavirus day and night in Wuhan celebrate the closing of the last temporary hospital in Wuhan. The report COVID cases went from surge in February of 15,000 in one day to only 15 this week. Okay, so you saw that, right? And I like what Dr. Gibbs says. Please don't tell the media, the CDC, and WHO about this. They're just getting their police state established. Right? So, okay, there you go. There's somebody else. There's over there in that Chinese province. They're done. They're putting their stuff to bed over there, and we're acting like it's the biggest crisis that ever hit the world.
the people who are hysterical, keeping people in their homes where they can't breathe any fresh air.
Now, if I ever engaged in conspiracy theories, I believe in conspiracies as long as they're true. We can understand if they're true. But just seriously though, the one of the motivations could very well be, let's say they are motivated and they are conspiring to distract us. Well, they distract us from potential wars. They don't want us talking and understanding the danger that we're getting into there. But what about this financial bubble?
Yeah.
They know it's bad, but I'll bet you 90% of the people now, so the financial crisis that we have came from the flu virus.
Yeah. And
who knows, most people are acknowledging this is not helpful to Trump's re-election thing, but who knows if it won't happen where he'll take credit for saying the Federal Reserve did this and it was the flu virus. It was beyond my control, and but people believe that, and it's the reaction to the propaganda. But what is really forgotten is, once again, we started off with talking about no price controls on gouging. This whole financial mess comes from the Federal Reserve System and the bugging of everybody wanting stuff for free.
Yeah.
And we've been following modern monetary theory.
So think about that, okay? So what he's saying is that they're going to basically, here's what's going to happen. Trump is going to claim like he's the savior of all this, and that all this infusion into the market saved everything. Well, they created it, though. They really created the whole thing. And now they're claiming that it's all done, right? Like it's all. Then they're going to claim later that it's all over and we fixed it all.
Theory now for many, many years, and the Fed's been pressured by everybody in the world, executive branch, legislative branch, everybody bugs them, print. So lower the interest rates. Now they're down to zero, and where are they going to go? They've run out of any place to go, and they've run out of common sense too. So this is a distraction that very few people are really going to talk about. The price fixing of interest rates. That's the big price. It's the biggest price messing around with that has caused so much havoc here for a long time since we've had a Fed, but especially in the past 10 years.
And I agree with Rand Paul and the Fed. Okay, I agree with him there too.
Like you have a drug addiction, a person with drug addiction come in. I need a fix. Oh no, your treatment is.
Okay, guys, I know you're all excited about the vaccination thing, and we could talk about vaccinations on another broadcast. Let's try to keep it to what we're talking about here, okay? Otherwise, we're just going to get carried away with vaccinations. It's going to take away from this, which is an issue that you and I want to intelligently discuss with people. Okay, there's a time for vaccinations. I don't have a problem with talking about that. Okay, I really don't. People know my stand on vaccinations. Well, I think you do anyway. But let's try to keep it to what we're dealing with right here, with the topic at hand here, because it's gonna continue to come up everywhere you go and whoever you talk to.
We gotta, calm you down and help you through. You gotta get off the drugs or you're gonna die.
Yeah.
But the guy said, please, tide me over. I need it. So you give him the job. And my gosh, he feels great.
Yeah.
He feels great. The economy has been feeling great, but it's all because they've gotten another financial fix, an artificial fix to keep it going, and now we're flooded.
Right, so they're flooding the market with everything. That's pretty much the gist of what I wanted to talk to you about with that. I'm not going to go any farther with that. All right, so let's go to, I want to show you this out of fairness. I think it's that. No, that's not it. Let's see. I had it up here somewhere. Where in the world did I go? Here it is. Let me show you this here. Now, people have been squawking for a little while here, saying that that they're going to lock down the country and, martial law and everything. This is from a text message from the National Security Council. Text message: rumors of a national quarantine are fake. There's no national lockdown. The CDC has and will continue to post the latest guidance on the COVID-19. So the coronavirus. So I don't. If you ask me, do you think this is the big one? Not really. I don't. I think it's like a test pilot to see how far they can go with it. But Trump says here we have 15 days to stop. But warns the crisis could stretch into the summer.
Trouble finding the...
Whoops. So, whatever. Do I believe that? No. I think people are going to get sick. Newt Gingrich says an overreaction to COVID-19 is better than a disaster. Well, it depends. China relaxes its travel restrictions and coronavirus hit. Wuhan shifts concern to international travelers. And so I think that the narrative that's out there, we got to be careful about it and not jump on this narrative of that. Well, they're gonna enact martial law. They're gonna do all these other things. Now, let's look at the scriptures here. Romans chapter 13. Is there this undying loyalty to government that if they tell us that we're not allowed to assemble together, are we to obey that? Well, here's the thing. If we believe if you believe that the Bible is telling you that you have to obey the government, over any cost, and that you have to follow them, then you misunderstand what Romans chapter 13 is saying. Romans chapter 13 does not preach to Christians a undying loyalty to to the government or to any king or magistrates. There is a hierarchy of law that is taught. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. Absolutely agreed. What is the higher power in the United States? Is it a magistrate or is it the law? I don't mean the highest power. We know the highest power is God in the Bible. But what is the higher power? In our country, it's the written Constitution. It's not... It is not supposed to be we have no king in America. We do not have a king in America. Our country is not set up like that. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God. Now, he's going to clarify this and explain this to you. And they that resist shall receive themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Well, what happens if they are a terror to good works? Well, then it's not lawful government. That it isn't lawful authority. Now, what we come to is, would it be wise if we thought our people were in danger not to assemble? if they were sick, if somebody had the virus, if our people were sick, would it be wise for them not to assemble with those particular members that are sick? Well, I think so. I think that'd be wise. But is it mandatory? Do we obey government or do we obey God? That's the question, right? For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good. Well, is assembling as a church bad? No. And thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. Okay? What if he's not being? Well, that he's not being lawful government, that God recognizes as it being lawful. Right? Down through history, one of the things that we fought for in America was the right to assemble. That's what we fought for. The right to assemble. That's what the whole Bill of Rights was about. Was the government recognizing our right from God to assemble. That's what we fought for. That's what the war was for. That's what it was fought for. And by the way, so soldiers couldn't quarantine your house and take it over. Or not. I'm using the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Take over your house and lock you down, which we're going to talk about, by the way. We'll get back to this text here. And we're going to use some other texts too, but let's go. What is it? What is martial law? Martial law is the imposition of directly military control of normal civilian functions by a government, especially in response to a temporary emergency. Such as invasion or major disaster or an occupied territory. Martial law can be used by the governments to enforce their rule over the public, as seen in the multiple countries listed below. Such incidents may occur after a coup d'etat, when threatened by popular protests like Tiananmen Square, Iranian Green Movement that led to the takeover by the Revolutionary Guards to suppress the political opposition. Martial law has been imposed during conflicts in cases of occupation where the absence of any civil government provides for an unstable population. Examples of this is a foreign military rule, including World War II, and the recovery and reconstruction of the former Confederate States of America under the Reconstruction era in the United States of America following the Civil War. Typical, the imposition of martial law accompanies curfews, the suspension of civil laws, civil rights, habeas corpus. Well, let's look at that. Listen.
Habeas corpus. Habeas corpus.
He says it better than me. Habeas corpus.
Habeas corpus. Habeas corpus.
I like the way he says it better than me. That you may have the body or detainee brought before in a recourse in law through which a person can report an unlawful detention or imprisonment to a court and request it. Requests the court order the custodian of the person, usually a prison official, to bring the prisoner to court to determine whether the detention is lawful. The writ of habeas corpus is known as the great and efficacious writ in all manner of illegal confinement. Now, we should talk about that. Okay, let's see. Let's look at this. This is an article that will be favorable to Lincoln, which I am not, by the way. But Lincoln's suspension of habeas corpus. Early in the war, President Lincoln faced many difficulties due to the fact that Washington was located in slave territory. Although Maryland did not secede, Southern sympathies were widespread. On April 27, 1861, Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus between Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia to give military authorities the necessary power to silence dissenters and rebels. On May 25th, John Merriman, a vocal secessionist, was arrested in Cockeysville, Maryland. He was held at Fort McHenry in Baltimore, where he appealed for his release under a writ of habeas corpus. The federal circuit court judge was Chief Justice Roger B. Taney, who issued a ruling ex parte Merriman denying the president's authority to suspend habeas corpus. Taney denounced Lincoln's interference with civil liberties and argued that only Congress had the power to suspend the writ. Lincoln did not respond directly to Taney's edict, but he did address the issue in a message to Congress in July. He justified the suspension. Now, what he doesn't tell you is that Lincoln, what he did, let's see. There it is. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Let me find. Because Lincoln was hailed as a good guy. Lincoln was really a tyrant. He enacted martial law. Let's see. Let me get you this here. I'm looking to see if I could find Lincoln Unmasked. That's a good one, too, by the way. The book, The Real Lincoln, you can read. Thomas De Lorenzo is the one that wrote that. Yeah, this will have something good on it here. Let me see if I can find it for you here. Unable to connect to chat. Please try later. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. Anyway, the chat's not working, so whatever. I'll keep going. But here's the thing, okay? So LouRockwell.com talks about Lincoln's suspension of habeas corpus. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, let me see if I can find. I read a good article on it a while back. Let's see here. I don't know why I keep saying that. Oh, maybe I have it on caps lock. Let me see here. Let me try this again. I want to find you this. Oh, that's like that's a subscribe button. Duh. Man, I'm slow today. Let's see. There we go. All right. See if I could find Lincoln in that. Because he had a great article. I read it years back, but let me see if I can find it. He talks about Lincoln as he really was. Whoa, I don't know what that is, but that's gross. Okay. The Unreal Lincoln. In December 2000, he talks about him. He was consummate politician who spoke out of both sides of his mouth, saying one thing to one audience and the opposite to another. He was adamantly opposed to racial equality, actually using the words superior and inferior. He opposed giving blacks the right to vote, to serve on juries, or to intermarry with whites. He supported the legal rights of slave owners and pledged his support of the constitutional amendment that would have prohibited the federal government from ever interfering with Southern slavery. He was a mercantilist and a political tool of the corrupt northern business interests. He was a railroad industry lobbyist who championed corporate welfare. He once represented a slave owner in a case which he sought to recover his runaway slave. So this narrative that he was like this great guy is so not true. It's not true. But they paint this picture that he's this other guy, okay? His suspension of habeas corpus, his suspension of that was basically, I wish I could find, wow. That's a good one, man. That's a good article right there. Lincoln Unmasked and the other one, you can find both of those books there, and they actually deal with his suspension of habeas corpus. They deal with what he did to be like the first president to really enact that martial law, to lock everything down, and to basically take over everything. That's what he did to a federal judge. He had a federal judge confined to his quarters, a Supreme Court justice, I think it was, confined to his quarters so he couldn't leave. And he said, well, let's see if he can get the order out. And he confined the federal judge to his house under martial law and set guards there, soldiers there, so the man couldn't get out. So the judge couldn't get out to take him to court. Do you see what I mean? That's what he did. I don't care what your purpose is. You don't save the Union by destroying the Union. That's what he did. And then he enslaved a judge, and he kept the judge there so the judge couldn't pass or the judge couldn't nullify his ruling, or Lincoln's proclamation. But that's what Lincoln did. I'll get to my position on Romans 13. I'm not there yet. I'm still working through the history and trying to explain things to people of what's going on, and then we'll get to that. I'll get to Romans 13. So, here is their take on martial law. Okay? Now, it's important to understand this also, that the National Emergency Act is what gave the president more rights, more power. And all he has to do is enact a natural emergency and say there's a national emergency. Then what can he do? The National Emergency Act. Boom. Then he's able to use his presidential authority to easily lock things down. That's what he's able to do with it. Which basically what it does, it allows the president to thwart the Constitution. But you can't take that. Look, whatever Congress was in session at that time can't, with perpetuity, give the next Congress and the next Congress and the next president that authority. But that's how they set it up. Right? But that's how they set it up. They set it up that way. So, we have to decide if we're going to follow the crowd or we're going to trust the Lord. We have to decide that. We've got to kind of make that decision. We've got to look at things. The National Security or the National Emergency Act here, these acts of national emergency, the act empowers the president to activate special powers during a crisis, but impose certain procedural formalities when invoking such powers. The perceived need for the law arose from the scope and number of laws granting special powers to the executive in times of national emergency. Congress can terminate an emergency declaration with a joint resolution signed into law. Powers available under this act are limited to the 136 emergency powers Congress has defined by law. Well, we all know that once you make a dictator, it's hard to get him done. It's hard to get the dictator it's hard to change that. How do you bounce back from that? How do you walk back from that? After you give people that kind of authority, how do you walk back from that? I don't really see how you can do that, to be honest with you. So now, they can end the crisis. They never waste a good crisis. They can end the crisis. It can be over, so to speak. They can walk back from that way, but they've already set it up for future. They've already set it up for future generations that they're going to do this very thing again. Do you see what I mean? They're going to set it up to be able to do that very thing. Now, what does the Bible say about that? Well, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore, you must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. They are God's ministers to thee for good. But if they tell you not to worship God, are they being a minister of good or evil? Again, I'm not saying that you and I'm not saying that you and I are not going to obey some of those things, because we have. But what's the difference? The difference is when it comes between us and the Lord. The difference is when it comes between us. There's certain things that we can deny ourselves, certain liberties that we can deny ourselves. But when it comes down to worshiping and serving the Lord, that becomes different. You know, if somebody's sick, then I could see voluntarily doing that. But when people are well and you're quarantining people that are well, I think that's really odd. You know, I think it's really odd to do that. You know, I think it's really strange. And I think it goes beyond the scope of authority of God, of people. You know, I think it does. So, you know, what we have to understand is that we have to decide one or two things at that point. Do we obey God, or how long? How long do these people tell God's people, well, you can't meet, you can't assemble together with the saints? You know, that's really saying a lot, isn't it? I would say. How long before God's people say, well, you know what, I don't know about that one? You know, they're definitely tanking the economy with this. They're definitely doing a lot of things with it. But the real point that I want to make to you is, what does God's word say about obeying government? Do we obey government over God? How long do we do that? For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore, ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually the very thing. Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor, owe no man anything but to love one another. See, here's the thing. There's going to come a time when you and I have to decide whether we're going to obey God or man. Right? I don't know what that question was. Somebody said, you really need to be in a building meeting to come together these days? No, we don't care where we meet at. That doesn't matter. We have one, but we don't care if we meet there. So we can meet anywhere. That's not really a big concern for us either. But at the same time, you know, we also believe that wherever you meet, that's where the church is assembled. It doesn't really matter where that is. But civil government doesn't have the right to tell you whether you can assemble or whether you can't. I think if they want to make that to where it's a mandatory thing, I think that's different. Well, they've always tried to paint the people of God to be bad. They've always tried to paint the people of God, to be, we've always been made to look like there's something wrong with us, right? We don't care where you meet. You can meet in somebody's house. You can meet anywhere you want in the woods. You can meet at anywhere. But the point is, it's talking about gathering. It didn't say anything about a building. By the way, can I say something to you all, too, what this proves? Well, I guess we don't really have to worry about the mark of the beast being Sunday, because if they're outlawing Sunday gatherings, they're outlawing the mark of the beast in the SDA's eyes. So I don't know. Well, that's kind of weird. That old prophecy got thrown out the window. Right? So, I mean, the SDA said, well, look what's going to happen. They're going to shut the whole, the mark of the beast is going to be mandatory Sunday worship. Well, that's not working out very well for him, is it? What happened to that? Well, that prophecy went kind of south, didn't it? Yeah. We don't really know. It must be part of the PSYOP. But we know what the Bible says. We know God's word says that not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is. We got to think about it, though. What's the decision that we make? I think we have to make wise decisions. If people are sick, we have to. I just don't see the whole. I just don't see the whole quarantine thing. Hang on a second. What do you guys think about that? Think about this. The Bible says we would obey God. Then Peter, they straightly commanded them, Then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God. Why did he say that to them? Because when they had brought them, they set them before the council, and the high priest asked them, saying, did not we straitly command you that you should not teach it in this name? And behold, ye have filled Jerusalem with your doctrine, and intend to bring this man's blood upon us. I don't, it's very clear what they said. Then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than man. The God of our fathers raised up Jesus, whom you slew and hanged on a tree. So they're very clear about their position. Now, Peter talked about that. See, Peter understood something about that, didn't he? Because he's talking about that right here. He's talking about that right here. Again, would we voluntarily not meet if people are very ill and we can't come together because we don't want to spread that and make people sick and make people worse? You know, that's one thing, isn't it? Well, we'll look at this verse. It says here, submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake. And what... By the way, it doesn't say each ordinance either. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether it be to the king as supreme, or unto governors as unto them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praise of them that do well. For so is the will of God, that with well-doing you may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. Now, was Peter talking about obeying man over God? If man had an ordinance that told him not to assemble or not to worship, would Peter have obeyed that? Well, I don't think so, because he just said we would obey God rather than man. So he put it in order, but he's saying that doesn't turn us into a rebel. It doesn't make us people that are contrary or disrespectful or anything like that. You know? Well, if the governor told Peter not to preach the gospel, well, most of these guys, kings, told them not to preach the gospel. And you're going to find out that all the apostles died preaching the gospel, besides John. So think about that for a second. They all died preaching the gospel. Kings and princes, everybody else didn't like it. Again, I understand some of the concern and hype. What I'm afraid of is it's going to be used in a bad way. You know? Hey, look, Minnesota Department of Revenue. We want to reassure you that the Minnesota Department of Revenue remains open and ready to help with tax-related services. Well, that's good. They're like, we're going to keep taking your money. So, again, I don't think it's going to be that bad, okay? I'm not trying to scare people, and I don't think... But my concern is, what in the world are they preparing us for? You know, what are they really actually preparing us for? Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether it be to the king as supreme or unto governors as unto them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers and for the praise of them that do well. For so is the will of God, that with well-doing you may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. As free, not using your liberty for a cloak of maliciousness, but as the servants of God. Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. Well, we believe in doing all that. We just won't We are not careful to answer thee, O king. Right? We are not careful to answer thee, O king. Like the Hebrew, I believe that there's a time for civil disobedience. Okay? I believe there is a time for civil disobedience. I believe the Bible shows a time for civil disobedience. Well, can you give me some of those? I wonder if I should save that for the next broadcast. Maybe I should. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll save that for the next broadcast. Civil disobedience. When is it time for civil disobedience? Oh boy. Like I need to get myself in any more trouble, right? That's what I need. More trouble. That's what you need, Pastor Cooley. Just more trouble. Just be dumb and get into more trouble. I don't have any buckets buried. I live in the city. Anyway. Joyce Pendergrass says, my concern is the forced vaccines they might try to make us take. Joyce, they're not going to have a real vaccine ready for another year, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. They're not even, they don't even have one they can test and put in somebody's arm yet. They're not even at the point of testing it on an animal yet. They've already said that they're a year away from having anything like that. So, anyway, I don't have a buried old pig pen either. I live in the city. I'm right smack dab in the city. I ain't getting away from nothing. The only Holy Father I have is God the Father in heaven. That's my Holy Father. And I know what the scriptures say. And we have plenty of examples of civil disobedience in the Bible. Now, you don't have to sound a trumpet, and you don't have to. There's plenty in the Bible on it, and I'll talk about it Wednesday. I'll just save it for Wednesday, and I'll deal with all the matters of civil disobedience that are in the Bible. It's called righteous rebellion, when it's right to rebel, and it is sometimes. However, that's a decision that you have to make. If there's people that wouldn't agree with me on that, I certainly wouldn't hold it against them, right? I certainly wouldn't hold it against them. Loaded topic, which there really is not. That's not true, Cheryl. It's all over the scriptures. I think you're speaking out of turn. You don't know what you're talking about, but it's all over the Bible. And I'll cover that. And you don't have to be nasty either. Well, Cheryl, I'm not being nasty. I'm being a man. If that offends you and that's nasty to you, well, then you're a feminist. And you don't like real men. Because I haven't said anything unkind to you at all. It's called speaking like a man. Now who's nasty? Yeah, I know, Mike. I didn't even say anything. Hey, Cheryl. No, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna show you anything about it. I'm not gonna. No, I refuse to. I won't. I'm not gonna. There you go. I will cover it on Wednesday. Anyway, all right. So as I continue on, listen. So there is a righteous rebellion. There is one in the Bible. We'll talk about that on Wednesday. But the Bible's very clear that we would obey God rather than man, that we must put God first. Sure, Kayla, that's fine. Okay, Cheryl, thanks for stopping by. Okay. So, in other words, basically for us to understand that God is very specific about his order and his rule. And Romans 13 is not undying, unloyal, or complete 100% loyal submission to government at any cost. It's not. Okay? That's not what God teaches us in the scriptures. Now, also, the other thing about that is I want you to think about this for a second, okay? Because this is really the catch. What is it? What is it about these proclamations and these things, you know, why do they always come to the people of faith? Why does it always come down to, well, you guys can't meet on Sunday? It's always come, you know, it's funny because in the open air, when you're preaching in the open air, it comes down to the fact of, okay, preaching in the open air. That it's, you know, they try to suspend that. They try to stop the preaching of God's word. They say it's disorderly conduct. So with this, you know, it's disorder. Why does it always come down to the people of faith? Why does it come down to us, right? Because this world is antichrist. This world is waxing worse and worse. That's what happens. And that's where it's headed. Do you understand that? It's headed for that. It's headed for worse times. We are headed for worse times. Because this world is antichrist. That's what it is. So governments have always been against God. The accusations of, well, you're endangering lives. That may be true, and we ought to think about that. Okay, so what I'm saying is Lincoln enacted martial law. Trump says this. Trump says he's not doing that. Do you think this has to do with partly with it? No, I don't think it has anything to do with 5G, but I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I don't know that for sure. I do know that there's way too much control. There's way too much control at the federal level. There's way too much control with all these things. Trump says he issues guidelines. Let's see this. Let's go over and look at this here. Okay. Speaking of martial law, speaking of National Emergency Act, speaking of all these things, President Trump announced on Monday a set of guidelines that he said Americans should follow to prevent the further spread of the coronavirus, despite admitting that the pandemic could stretch into July or August. I think this is a bunch of nonsense and garbage. I'm not saying people don't die. I'm not saying people don't get sick. I'm saying this is a heavy push. Okay? All right. With several weeks of focused action, we can turn the corner and turn it quickly, Trump said. Our government is prepared to do whatever it takes. What does that mean? What exactly does that mean, whatever it takes? Right? Speaking during a briefing of the coronavirus task force, Trump outlined a plan to slow the spread of COVID-19 in 15 days. With several weeks of focused action, we can turn the corner and turn it quickly, Trump said. Our government is prepared to do whatever it takes. At another point during the news conference, asked if the U.S. was headed into recession, Trump replied, well, it may be. But then he said, we're not thinking in terms of recession. We're thinking in terms of the virus. The guidelines advise the older people and those with underlying health conditions stay home and away from other people. Officials recommended that large swaths of population isolate themselves and everyone avoid social gatherings.
Welcome back, everyone.
Officials recommended the large swaths of populations isolate themselves and everyone avoid social gatherings of groups of more than 10 people. They also said Americans should work from home if possible, avoid eating or drinking in bars and restaurants, avoid discretionary travel, shopping trips, and social visits. Wow, really? So just like sit at home? When asked when the pandemic would subside, Trump said, if we do a really good job, the crisis could pass by July or August. A far less optimistic take than his earlier prediction that could be over within a few weeks. We will rally together as one nation. We will defeat the virus. Really? Trump's comments came as Ohio governor announced his recommendation to delay the state's primary election till June. The president said that while the states whose presidential primary elections are being very, very careful, he thinks postponing elections are unnecessary. Postponing is not a very good thing, he said. I think postponing is unnecessary. The coronavirus pandemic has infected over 169,000 people and killed over 6,500. COVID-19 illnesses cause mild or moderate symptoms for most patients, but severe symptoms have been more than likely in the elderly people with existing health problems. More than 77,000 people have recovered from it so far, mostly in China. We are at a critical inflection point in this country, the Surgeon General said. When you look at the projections, there's every chance that we could be Italy. Still, the U.S. had opportunities to mitigate the pandemic. The U.S. effort has been, Adams, on Fox News, Adams claimed the U.S. had turned the tide on testing, a critical part of tracking and containing pandemics, but whether that was true remained to be seen. The U.S. effort has been hobbled by a series of missteps, including flaws with testing, first distributed by the federal government, bureaucratic hurdles, all that good stuff. Okay. So now they're saying they don't want anybody to meet in groups of 10. Well, that's a stark difference, right? Than where it was before. So all pushing this narrative. All pushing this narrative, right? To keep people. Right now, it's not mandatory, but they're suggesting. When does it come mandatory? When do they force it mandatorily? Now, in a mandatory way. I'm not saying that you and I, that there won't be, a time when maybe we have to be careful and, if people are getting sick and we have to, but, how long do you expect people just to sit at home? Let me see what the Minnesota governor. Let's see, Minnesota governor. Let's see what he says. Oh, Cheryl, you don't have to troll me like that. You can just go on your merry little way and go somewhere else. You don't have to be on here since we're all dumb and you're smarter than all of us. Why would you want to listen here? You should go somewhere else where somebody actually cares about what you say, where they're actually listening to what you have to say. Because here, nobody's gonna really. Okay? You could do that. It'd be fine. Let's see here. That was 1 day ago. 2 hours ago. Let's see what the Minnesota governor says. Says the state's economy will be stressed due to the coronavirus pandemic. Let's see. He says he doesn't say. I'm just looking to see what the announcement confirms that we have suspected deteriorating economic conditions caused by COVID will stress Minnesota's economy. Doing the right thing to protect ourselves and one another. Social distancing is hard on our economy in the short run, but it will ultimately be the right thing for all of us. Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, let's see what he's saying here. Well, we'll see what they say. We'll see what they make mandatory and what they don't. The new proclamations that will come out, right? And see what's made mandatory and what isn't.
Or delivery.
We've been learning over the last couple of days is,
you know, what has to happen and what doesn't need to happen, that sort of thing. They have suggestions that they put out for people, right? But we'll see where those go. We'll see what happens with all that. You know, we don't know exactly. This territory is kind of new for a lot of people. You know, it's new. We don't know what they're going to do. Nobody can say they know how they're going to handle the virus. I had a friend say that, and I agree with him. We don't know how we're going to handle everything. We don't know how it's going to all work out. We're not sure. You know, it really is a good test of faith, isn't it? Isn't it a good test of faith to find out exactly what we do? Now, I think there could be some situations, and let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about how there could be some situations, right? There could actually be some situations. Can anybody think of that? And I'm going to get out of here pretty soon here, but we got a little bit of time. Can anybody think of a situation that it could be a situation where maybe you shouldn't meet? A situation where we shouldn't meet together. Think about that for a second. Is there a time when we shouldn't meet? Is there, could there be? And I would say I think there could be. I mean, but it needs to be, no. I mean in sickness. I'm talking about in sickness. If you have people, I've been thinking more about how I might get someone sick delivering all this Chinese stuff to people in your deliverance ministry, Mike. But think about it this way. Maybe it would be bad if someone has it and we're all meeting together. Maybe it could be. So I think each church would have to make that decision. And, if someone has a coronavirus and you have 70, 80-year-old, like my dad's 76 years old. He's got to be careful. I mean, if he gets it, it could kill him. He's a heart patient. We got to be careful. So I get the fact that we have to use discernment. My point is does government have the authority to tell you can't meet? Well, not in America. They actually don't. They actually don't have the authority to tell you that you can't meet, that you can't assemble. And sadly, if people, the way you have to look at it is if people want to die, then they have the right to die. They do. And if you're worried about it, then you can stay home. Okay, so somebody asked me a question. Jenna, I have a serious question. This happened to my paternal cousin. If a woman is pregnant, the baby is growing in the wrong spot in her stomach, and she'll die if she doesn't have an abortion. Is this a sin? The baby will die, and there's no chance for the baby to live? Is that what you're asking? Or the baby's going to die? I'm not sure what you're asking. That's a terrible situation to be in. We've had people in our church that have had a baby, and it grew outside of the womb, and it bursted, and it could have killed her. So, I mean, I don't know what you're asking exactly. The baby can't live. It's going to die. I'm assuming the baby's going to die on its own anyway. So I'm not sure about the abortion, the necessity of an abortion. So there are situations like that come up. She will, because the baby was growing in the wrong place in her body and she didn't have an abortion, she would have died. I can't answer. I can't answer that really. Probably the baby and the mother, I would think. It's a very dangerous situation. If the baby is growing outside of the womb, it's not going to live. It's going to die. An ectopic pregnancy will die. The baby can't live like that. So it is going to die. So if you can save the life of the mother, because the baby is going to die, it cannot live like that, then of course you try to preserve the life. You don't want both of them to die. I think that's the decision. There isn't a chance that baby's going to live like that. It's going to die anyway. It's just going to suffer more, and it could rupture, and it could cause the lady to bleed to death. And that would be a very hard decision to make, but I don't think that's the same thing as, as having an abortion in that sense. I don't believe that's the same thing. That's totally different, than going in and aborting your baby. So, yeah, I think that's understandable that in that sense the baby is going to die, and they have to kind of control how that happens in order to save the life of the mother, because the baby can't live like that. It'll starve to death, or it dies, and it ruptures, and when it does, it kills the baby and the mom. So, right. So, I don't think there's much you can do about that. Yeah, I don't think there's much you can do about that. So, anyway, those are sad situations that we don't like, for sure. Yeah, I don't think that's the same thing as willingly standing in line and aborting your baby. I think there's a big difference in those two. big difference in that and, that situation there. So anyway, but, well, listen, we understand these times. Is the president going to, is he going to suspend habeas corpus? Is he going to conduct martial law? Is he going to enforce martial law, put curfews on people? The governors, they are already in different states, states that are, let's see. Let's see. The Dow plunged nearly 3,000 points, absolutely destroying the economy. And I'm like Ron Paul. I believe that it's because of their mishandling and the way they're dealing with things. U.S. states order sweeping restrictions. We have 69 deaths, and they've ordered this many restrictions. 5 other states. New York and 2 neighboring states, Connecticut, New Jersey, will also ban gatherings of more than 50 people. Restaurants and theaters and casinos will close. 5 other states, Ohio, California, Illinois, Massachusetts, and Washington, will also shut bars and restaurants. Mr. Cuomo urged the federal government to deploy national resources to increase building medical capacity. So everybody is like cutting things down. Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. Adolph Cooley, huh? Man. Well, we do have our enemies, don't we? Yeah. Well, join the club. There's that Hate Cooley club out there. They've got the quickest way if you'd like to. All right, that's weird. The quickest way if you'd like to join the Hate Cooley club is to do a video about me. That's everybody always does a video about me. They got to do a video about me, right? And that's the quickest way for you to join the Hate Cooley Club. You just do a video. So they're anyway. Well, listen. Wednesday we'll talk, and maybe tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe I'll do another broadcast tomorrow. Who knows? I don't know. If this stuff keeps heating up, maybe I'll do one every day. I don't know. But I don't have time to do one every day. But maybe I'll do another one, an extra one. But we'll talk about some things. We'll keep it going. We'll see what happens here, right? We'll keep going and see what happens. But pray for a young lady named Nadia. She has babies and married, good lady, and she is, fighting breast cancer and a few other things. And we're really concerned for her. A cousin of hers goes to church here, and please pray for Nadia. They're worried about her having the coronavirus. She's going into the hospital. There's just a lot of things going on. So pray for her that God would just miraculously protect her and would take care of her and would heal her. And she's got babies to raise and everything else. Just pray that the Lord would be with her. Pray for all of us. Pray for the financial situations and everything else right now. So pray for us at this time with that. She just had a baby due to the C-section as well. And I mean, just pray for her. Pray for everyone. Pray for our finances. Churches always get hit hard with things like this because people, if income is down, things happen, people don't give, all that kind of stuff. But God knows and God takes care of us. But just keep it all in prayer, okay? God bless you all. And we'll be in touch here. And if I hear anything, you'll hear it first. We'll talk to you later.